It's Joey Novick, and you're listening to Punchlines in Politics, the weekly show that puts in the same room at the same table our elected officials and comedians in New Jersey to discuss the issues of the day. And yes, that is me on guitar on that opening music. That was my band playing. So we have a lot to talk about today. We have some great guests here. I know a couple of you have been here before, so you're old hands at this. We've got a new guest here, but I just want to run around the table to my right on most issues, and also seated with me is one of the freeholders who represents me in Hunter County is Rob Walton, a guest, always a great guest of the show. I want to thank you.
Good evening, Joey. Glad to be here.
And a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. I know I asked you how
Die hard and no longer suffering, but
no longer suffering. And although this year in the World Series, Chicago Cubs versus the Cleveland Indians, this should be an interesting race.
I am rooting for the Indians. I
am rooting. You know what? I am going to root for the Yankees because anything can happen in a World Series.
Well, 161 days until opening day. So
there we go. Just a game away from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And we have Jeff Scott. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. Jeff,
Hi.
Jeff has started doing comedy fairly recently, 2 years or so ago. And Jeff, where have you played recently, Jeff? Any particular club? Where have you done?
Well, I've done a few. I've done Broadway Comedy Club, New York Comedy Club in the city, and then downer shows up and down. Here in Jersey.
I detect a slight southern New Jersey accent.
Now, this is my Brooklyn accent, but a lot of people don't buy that. I'm originally from Alabama, but
there you go. Okay.
7 years of my life here in Jersey.
Welcome to New Jersey. All comers in New Jersey are allowed to join us in the Garden State.
Everybody here's from somewhere else.
That's pretty much the case. I'm from New York myself, and welcome. I've been in Alabama. I've played comedy clubs down there, and the one thing I learned about being Jewish and being Alabama, very easy to get your mail, because my mom would just put on the envelope, Jew, Alabama. Came right to me without a problem.
There's only 3 or 4.
There was only 3. Oh, there's that many. Okay.
Yeah, it's improved in a while.
I have no idea. They tripled their numbers since
it's a diversity program.
Diversity program. We're going to bring in some of them Jews. So we've got, speaking of Jews, Kevin Israel, who the whole country stole his name from. Yes. I appreciate that. Yes. Welcome back.
The King Jew.
Okay, welcome back. And your show, Bros, I got to catch that on YouTube.
And, we just taped a couple more episodes. Go to my website, kevinisrael.com, for the episodes, or just search The Bros Show on YouTube.
And what's the basis of the show? Is it your growing up, or what?
No, it's a sitcom style web series based around 2 buddies who are kind of gym meatheads. It's very New Jersey feel and New Jersey based.
Great.
It's an offshoot of a little web episode we did a few years back called Gym Clowns that got 3.3 million hits.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we took that and we branched it out into an actual series.
I have to say, I love the independent usage by comedians of the web and how people's careers are being enhanced by this. Some of my friends, Vic DiBitetto was the classic case of a guy who took a video that hit big after Sandy, the bread and milk video, and has turned that into, from driving a bus 3 years ago to getting 10,000 a weekend at comedy clubs and theaters. And he is a pure working man comic, headlining for 30 years and an overnight success because of one video. As he says, 30 years of doing this and a 30-second video, who knew? So it can be done. And also, as I was mentioning earlier, my friend Jim Mendrinos, who took in his video show, has been selling it in L.A. and New York. And I know he's been talking to some company about a deal about making this into a sitcom. So a great way to put out your comedy. And I think it's you also put out an album recently. You recorded your own
we recorded
CD.
it. We're still in the final editing process of it.
Very cool, man. Yeah. Very cool.
A lot going on.
Good luck with that and your career. I don't know how you have the time to do this. And I see you working on your Facebook page.
I'm tired.
You're all over the place. Thank you for being with us.
I think you've
always done a great job for me working. And here's a guy who does his comedy at the Somerset County Freeholder Board. Brian Levine is with us yet again. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Joey.
Brian and I got a chance to spend some time this summer in Cleveland.
Yes.
Speaking about Cleveland at the Republican National Convention, where you were a delegate.
Good. Yeah, technically an alternate delegate. But I was there.
I don't want to, I don't want to have you lie and sell to people you're a delegate. Now, were you a delegate for Trump there?
Yes.
Delegate? So,
yeah, everyone else in New Jersey kind of got knocked off.
So I guess we should open this up talking a little bit about the Trump-Clinton election. It has been, or as I've been calling it, Walking Dead. So that is basically like watching the show. But it is. Did anyone catch? I have to admit, in all honesty, I could not watch the entire third debate. I watched about maybe 20 minutes of it, and I had to turn it off. Anybody watch the entire third debate?
Oh, yeah. Made a big bowl of popcorn.
Did you
Coke,
watch
yeah.
it? Yeah.
A few stiff drinks. That was what got me through.
And do you think, what did you think of the third debate? I mean, I was watching, I was hearing a lot of the same things that I hear normally.
Well, it's kind of as was said. I think Donald was very disciplined through a good piece of it, and then, as is his wont, and probably made him successful.
Yeah, I think he did well.
He just kind of.
Because I think he only said wrong once when they introduced Hillary. Welcome, Secretary. Wrong. I mean, I don't know that when she gave her name. I think that was the only time he said the word wrong.
Though it reminds me, this is going back 20 years. I actually read his books before it was popular, and in there, I remember him saying, "I don't work with any marketing studies or teams. I do my own marketing," and so that's kind of carried over to the presidential election. So I don't think that's so different for him. That's how he's always done things.
I mean, one of the things, and I'm going to open this up to all you guys. I mean, I was watching him in the debates, as we all are on the political side. I was watching him in the debates on the Republican side, and he seemed very authentic, very much at ease in the whole format, and never. One of the moments that I thought was phenomenal for him was when Jeb Bush thought he caught him in a little gotcha, and he said, "Well, Donald, I happen to know that you gave, tens of thousands of dollars to Hillary Clinton when she ran for Senate," thinking that he would, back off. And he said, "Well, yeah, I gave a lot more to her also. And, I'm a businessman. I have to work with Democrats. I have to work with Republicans. And that's what I did." And you could see the look of it was almost like Walter Mondale's face when Reagan said, when Reagan said his line about, he wasn't going to make age an issue in the race. That was like Donald's moment. And Jeb, I just think, he lost any Republican
Jeb didn't have a comeback in his back
pocket. There was no comeback to that. I mean, it was actually a very good answer. Yep. So I thought it worked very well.
The frustrating thing about watching Trump, for me, as a lifelong conservative, is he is right on so much of the issues instinctively, but he doesn't have the argument to back it up. Right. And so when you begin to challenge him a little bit, he falls back on the rhetoric instead of falling onto a substantive argument about the Constitution, about federalism, about other issues that Republicans have been and conservatives have been speaking about for years and years and years, largely because he's new to it. So it often comes off as just, Archie Bunker yelling at the TV set instead of being an effective answer. And he's right on so much, and you listen and you watch, and you're proud to see somebody fighting the way he does for issues that I agree with. And then you wish it was a better vehicle. You wish it was backed with a little better substance. And that's frustrating to watch.
And this is the problem that I've had with some conservatives who were brought up on the conservatism of the Sean Hannity's, Rush Limbaugh's, and Mark Levin's. Because when I was reading, when I wanted to know what a conservative was saying, I went back and I read Milton Friedman, I read William Safire, I read George Will, and I got an idea of the
Bill Buckley, Bill Rusher,
William Buckley, absolutely. Of the philosophical foundation of true conservatism, which I don't necessarily agree with, but now I have an understanding of what it really is. And when you have like this superficial, shallow, shouting conservatism, I don't think it works as well. I think you're very right.
It doesn't, and that's part of why he's not able to move voters that aren't with him. And that's really been the shortcoming of his campaign, in my mind, is he has his base, which will jump over a cliff with the guy, but he's not been able to translate that into a way to bring people who are on the fence with him. And part of it is his personality. Part of it is his lack of persuasiveness with these issues because he's not well versed in them.
Right.
If you're looking for somebody to disrupt, you're on Donald's side. And the other frustrating thing is he seems to be only talking to people who are already agreeing with him. He goes on Fox News all the time. And
absolutely.
Sorry, if you're watching Fox News, you're already voting for Trump.
He doesn't allow people to disagree with him. He can't partake in a exchange of ideas and have a constructive conversation where somebody disagrees with him and you either meet in the middle or agree to disagree. It's always completely adversarial, and the more you've gotten to see that, and in the primary process, I think people just sort of accept that that's the way it's going to be. You've got people who sort of are all on the same side of something, so you've got to have these head bashing disagreements. But when you get to the general election, you want to see a mix of ideas.
I mean, I will tell you as a left-wing Democrat who was a Bernie delegate. I mean, it's right there on my computer. I was a Bernie delegate. I've sat on the Borough Council in Flemington, having to work across the table with several conservatives, several libertarians, and we are forced by the nature of our adult responsibility to find common ground to get things done, and you have to do that. I don't think. I mean, when you say Trump won the second debate, I think what he did was win the second debate with people who are already voting for him.
Yeah,
I didn't see the needle move for him.
I don't think the needle's moved for either one of them. Neither one of them has had the kind of a Reagan-esque moment of, I will not use your age against you in this election to sway people one or the other. There's been no Lloyd Benson moment of, I knew John Kennedy, he was a friend of mine, to sway people one way or the other. It's been pretty much status quo.
Or that Joey Novick moment, please pass the donut, which was my... No, I'm just kidding.
The other thing that's frustrating about the debates, and that we really don't talk a whole lot about because Trump is so interesting to speak about, is how bad a candidate Hillary Clinton is. I mean, this woman would have been beatable by all 16 of the other Republican nominees in a landslide. She is just terrible on that dais. She is stiff. She is... you don't believe a word that's coming out of her mouth. I don't. It's frustrating in some ways that you said before the program began. It's amazing Trump is so close. Well, yeah, he's got a terrible opponent.
Right. And it's so funny. Now, while I don't agree with you that she would be beaten by any of the Republican opponents, I would say that I think that if we went over each one, I would say yes to Kasich. I would say most likely to Rubio. I would say 50-50 to Jeb Bush, because I don't think Jeb Bush would have been as likable. I would say yes to, who else was on there? Chris Christie, I think, might have been a yes also. So I think that there are several others that she would have beaten on the basis of, her experience. Somebody like a Bobby Jindal.
I think that's wishful thinking on the part of a good Democrat.
No, but what I'm saying is I agree with the theory completely, and I could say definitely a solid yes to several of them that would be the case, because I think that she would have had an authenticity problem.
But the truth is the same on the Democrat side too, where if it was Bernie running against Trump, we would have probably had no conversation to have. Because he would have been.
You think Bernie would have been?
Oh, I think he would have run away with it against Trump.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and
really?
You know what?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's
absolutely.
why
Purely for a likability and a trustworthy standpoint, I think people would have looked at him and said, "You know what? I believe what he's saying. I trust him. He seems put together." And I'm a lifelong Republican.
Yeah.
But I know where he's going. I know his beliefs and things.
You still think the centrists would have gone over to Bernie?
I think over Trump. I think so. I think you're going to see a massive amount of people sitting out this election.
Oh yeah,
you're going to
agree.
see the two off-ticket candidates getting more votes than usual, because I think people are going to walk in, see there's two other names, and just go, might as well run a risk with one of them.
I picture Joe Biden turning to his advisors and saying, well, why did you tell me not to run? Why was it her turn? Wait a minute.
Well, you know what happened? If you remember this moment, there was I forget which state it was, but if you remember, in Iowa, Bernie is almost at parity with her, and then she actually announces that she was the winner. If you remember,
yep.
So the media, the lazy hazy media, goes with that announcement and says, "Oh, she announced that she won. How did we miss that? Okay, she won." and yet Bernie did as well as she did.
Well, that happened 4 years ago with Romney and Santorum, where Santorum in the end won.
Right.
But of course, Romney on election night seemed to have the lead, and they gave
Exactly.
him victory. And
facts don't matter; the headline matters.
And the headline, exactly. And the thing about what ends up happening is he's at parity with her in Iowa. You have to remember that they left Iowa with the same number of delegates, because no state is a winner-take-all state. So they and then of course he beats her in New Hampshire, which is his backyard, which she expected. Then that third state, they were kind of thinking that, oh well, should we replace her with Joe Biden? So then that third state, I think, was South Carolina, where she definitively beat Bernie Sanders, and I think that's why Keep It Airways. Jeff, you're going to.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Bernie would have run away with it, but the thing is, the thing that gets me is that I don't think he was ever going to have a chance. They were never going to allow him to break through.
Right.
The things that they're doing
not.
now. With the media, with trying to slant polls, for Hillary against Trump, they did the same thing with Bernie successfully to a large degree. I mean, it's like it's a mentality and a drive. It's like watching a lot of old mob guys who have waste management backgrounds. You know, it's that kind of scheme.
You have been in Jersey a
I
long
have
time.
been in Jersey long enough to know that. It's like watching a bunch of mob guys in waste management companies. That he was never going to be able to break through.
But you know what? This is all activity that has been going on all the time, especially national politics. But now that we live in the age of social media, where we're basically living in the candidate's lap 24/7, suddenly we see how the sausage is made, and we're going, "Oh, we don't like that." And it said, "Well, this is what's been going on behind the curtains forever, and probably worse."
Right.
I mean, just look at the Democrat primary in New Jersey, which was decided about 2 weeks ago, before one vote was cast.
For governor?
The governor's race was decided because Phil Murphy got a handful of endorsements from party chairs, and everybody else dropped out, and there'll be no primary in the Democrat side. This is not democracy. I mean, your party, Joey, is losing its ability to call itself the Democrat Party.
It's a total coincidence that he won after spreading a few $1,000,000 around, but that's just...
Well, as one party chair said when Dick Cody ran against John Corzine in the primary, they said, I can either raise money for Cody or take money from Corzine.
Take money from
and they all took
Corzine.
money from Corzine.
And that's, hey, look, I am proud to say that when I was, in all disclosure, when I was the county chair of the Democratic Party in Hunter County, I took a donation from John Corzine, and our county
shocked.
was the only, but our county was the only one who ended up endorsing, Jim Florio in that Senate race. And because
Did you just brag about taking money from one candidate but
I-
endorsing the
endorsing
other?
the other candidate,
Oh, that's
because-
you should hang your
Hey,
hat on that.
That's
This
those waste
is-
management guys that will come back to visit
This
you.
is New Jersey, and the funny thing is, what we did is we had in Hunter County we had a caucus, and we had we had a.
Were there more people on this table or that one?
No, we had a convention. I know I was going to take shots here. That's fine. I'm open to it. We had a convention in which all of our delegates voted, and John Corzine came to speak, and Jim Florio came to speak, and Jim Florio won the endorsement. Even though, and I got to tell you, John Corzine for the next 8 years never let me forget that we took a donation, but he did not win. But I think that was the fair way to hold it, is not to have an endorsement 9 months before the election season even begins. So here's a poll. There was a Fairleigh Dickinson poll. This is New Jersey. A Fairleigh Dickinson poll shows in New Jersey Hillary Clinton up by 11 points over Donald Trump. However, this is important.
That's not a shocker.
If you add into the mix, this is very important. If you add into the mix, that's straight up. If you add into the mix Green Party's Jill Stein and Libertarian Gary Johnson, and poll only those who are registered voters who consider themselves most likely to vote on Election Day, it's a little bit different. Most voters responded by screaming, "Please stop. Stop asking me questions. I can't take it anymore." So that was the result of that poll, which I'm just reading. It's from the Fairleigh Dickinson poll. So, this has been going on since, I think this election began in earnest almost 2 years ago. I remember seeing, that 2 years ago, and the national nightmare will be over November 8th, unless, thank you. We have an applause from
But
Rob.
that sentiment is a horrifying feeling that's pervasive through the country, that at the end of a presidential election, we're just going to go, oh, thank God it's done. Let's just get through look, like I said, I'm a Republican, but when Obama got elected and when he got inaugurated, there was this feeling that the country had turned a page, and there was this new emotion and this new sentiment in the country, and it was a good thing. Whichever side of the aisle you sit on, you had to look and go, this is a moment in history, and it was a step forward for the country. This election, whoever wins, it's going to be a step back, because it's the entire public going, we're choosing the lesser of two evils, and we're just going to sit with our heads between our legs and our fingers crossed, praying neither of them, whoever gets elected, does something stupid and starts World War III.
Well,
I'm sorry, no, go on.
as a conservative who advocates that government should not be a big deal in our life, it might be a healthy thing, because if people say, you know what, I just don't care what Washington does. It doesn't matter to my daily life. I'm not going to put that much power in their hands and put that much importance in what they do. And I'm going to live my life. I'm going to live in my county, live in my state. And whatever they do up in Washington, it's a mess. They're not getting a damn thing done. Fine. And not yield to them that power and influence over their life.
That's an interesting perspective. Look, as a left-wing Democrat, I've always recognized that there are certain things that when the marketplace cannot do it successfully, that the only entity that can walk in and help people and save people's lives and correct the market is the federal government. I mean, I do think that that is a case. And I've seen that, for the area, for an area, for example, like civil rights. Okay, I really do think that you needed the federal government and court coming in to correct that wrong. And there are a lot of people who are conservatives and libertarians who think, well, no, if you want to have a restaurant that doesn't allow Jews, blacks, or homosexuals, they should be able to put up a sign that says that, and eventually they will go out of business or only serve those people. Well, that was the segregation model that seemed to not really.
But those issues were gone and settled.
Right.
Other than what bathrooms people can use who are trying to go through their gender identity issues.
Right.
What other issues are there out there? Those things are settled. You have gay marriage. We have civil rights for African Americans and for all races and creeds and religions. Those major issues have been, though they're not, I know the culture still has issues, but I'm saying as a matter of law and the federal government active, they're done.
Here's my thought, Rob. As long as you're out there, I'll be there. Wherever there's a man who's trying to stop somebody from going to the bathroom, I'll be there.
I hope you make that the center
I'll be there.
policy platform of your party for
That
the next
is
election.
that will be my
That
center.
will be,
The
But
grapes
successful.
of Joey's wrath.
Joey's wrath. I have to pee. Joey, can you get out of the way? So no, you're not going.
And you're right in that the federal government shouldn't and doesn't have as big an impact on our day-to-day lives as people would make it out to, especially during an election. But the scary part is what's going on across the world and what this leader is going to be walking into, and the volatile situations that are happening everywhere. That's going to take a very steady hand and a diplomatic nature to work out what's going on in the Middle East and what's going on in Russia and what's going on in Asia. And the person that's stepping into office right now could stand on the pinnacle of history, depending on which way some of these things fall. And do we
Very
want
important.
either of these two candidates at the top to be that person? Because I don't.
No.
I think that Donald Trump's being a candidate is one of the best things that could ever happen to the Republican Party. And I'll tell you why. I think that the Republican Party largely has been heading in the wrong direction for a while. I think that this candidacy will enable them, again, this is my prediction as a Democrat, will enable them to set their course in the right direction. I think that the future of the Republican Party is in people like you and in people like you who recognize that the social issues like marriage equality and abortion have been settled completely. And those are issues that the Democrats have really been hanging their hats on for many, many years and getting elected. And I think that your next Republican president is going to be Paul Ryan. I certainly think that he will put himself in there as a candidate in 2020. I think he's got to. Unless there's some other governors. And I think you also have to look at one thing. During the time of the Obama presidency, the Democrats have lost governorships. We went from 32 to 18, so our bench is almost nil. You guys have a very much more of a deep bench than the Democrats do. And you know what? Look at the two candidates. I'm 62. I never thought in my lifetime I would ever see another president older than me, right? I thought that was done. I thought we were moving forward.
Yeah.
And yet the best two candidates the Democrats could come up with were Hillary Clinton, who's 69, and Bernie Sanders, who was 75. I mean, that's amazing. You guys have much more youth on your hands. So, I mean, I think there's much to be said.
I just hope we get there to see it.
Yeah.
I don't disagree that a new direction will come from this for the Republicans. I just don't know that I agree that it's going to be Paul Ryan. I think one thing that may be missing is that what has really resonated with both the left and the right has been the anti-establishment. It's that people want the establishment out. That people want the establishment of the left, the establishment of the right, the just unbelievable, regulatory society that has descended upon us, and I think that one of Trump's appeals is also is going back to the way he doesn't necessarily articulate it. One of his appeals is that no matter what, he's anti-establishment, and at the same time, he can't articulate it in a way that will pull more people into that camp. So his best weapon is sometimes his worst weapon against himself in that respect.
And where I think that that's a false read, it's like, when you get a false read from a medical test, is Donald Trump calling him anti-establishment is ridiculous. This is a guy who has controlled the political, or been very influential in the political scene in New York for the last 25 years. He said it himself that he gives millions of dollars to candidates, legislative candidates, gubernatorial candidates, both in New Jersey and in New York. This guy has been at the center. You want to talk about, people not taking money from lobbyists, not taking money from millionaires. He's the guy who's been writing a lot of these checks. Now, he may sell himself as an anti-establishment candidate, and people may say, hey, well, he's not Hillary Clinton, he's not Bernie Sanders, but he's been the money machine for much of this, and he said it on the stage during the debate.
But who do you want in there? The guy who was writing those checks, or do you want the lady who's taking the money in a Stop and Shop bag and stuffing it under the mattress and sending out shady people?
We have
what Stop and Shop do you go to?
I love
nothing against Stop and Shop.
I got to go to that one.
One of your lines about watching Trump and watching Hillary was like watching your parents argue on stage. I thought that was very, very funny. We are going to be back in 30 seconds or so after these words from our sponsors. You are listening to Punchlines and Politics on WPANJRadio.com. We'll be back shortly. Hi, you're listening to Joey Novick, and I am the host of Punchlines and Politics. We air live every Monday, 7 p.m. right here on WPANJRadio.com, and that show repeats at 6. Each day, we have some of the best people from politics and some of the most fantastically funny comedians in New Jersey. So please, listen to me, come in the studio, and enjoy the show. Joey Novick, Punchlines and Politics.
And the sun goes down upon this river town.
Hi, this is Judith Marchand with PANJ Radio. I'd like to invite you to listen to my new show, Musical Notes, where I will be interviewing different musicians at 8 p.m. every night. Tuesday nights I will have a new musician, and then it will air the rest of the week. We'll be finding out what these musicians are all about and listening to some of their music. So tune in. It's going to be a great show on PANJRadio.com.
Your business only gets one chance to make a first impression. That's why Green Birdie Productions offers free re-edits on every high-definition video we create. Our Emmy Award-winning staff and green screen special effects studio guarantee the quality we strive for. It's no wonder most of our business comes from referrals. Green Birdie Productions. Compelling video, competitive price.
Hey, this is Jack Furlong, host of The Strike Zone on PANJ Radio, the sports talk show, live on Monday at 12 o'clock, where we talk about local and national sports-related topics. We take your phone calls in the last half hour, trying to get your opinion about some controversial things that goes on in the world of sports. Here's a quick clip from the show that aired on Monday.
You know, at the end of the day, I think that the one thing that's missing from both the Giants operation and the NFL is transparency.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think we see the decline in ratings, and they're dying of 1,000 cuts, the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is just another, log on the fire that's burning underneath them, compared to the lousy football, the saturation of football, the amount of penalties, the kneeling for the national anthem. Like, all these things are coming into play on the TV ratings.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you talk to Roger Goodell, you were at 345 Park Avenue, he would say, oh, well, we were up against the presidential campaign, which is a whole other discussion.
Is there a wall that I can hit my head against?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the best documentary on Steinbrenner was Seinfeld, just in case there is any...
The Calzone episode?
Yeah, exactly.
Calzone episode?
Check out the archive page if you missed it for an instant replay at panjradio.com. We'll see you Monday on The Strike Zone.
Hey, and we're back. It's Joey Novick. I'd love to do a show just called Hey, and We're Back. It's just the second half of every show where we make people think that they didn't hear the first half of the show. So just kind of finishing up in this conversation regarding Hillary and Donald. I mean, these are two people also who for the last quarter century have been very intimate friends, their families. I believe they have been friendly between the two of them.
You've not been around politics long enough then, Joe. I mean,
what?
There are, like, I give hug and kisses to lots of people.
Right.
And I'm sure Brian does too.
Not you never kissed me.
No, never kissed Brian,
we are in
which is
Harding
allowed.
County.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's perfectly okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're intimate friends. I mean, saying hello to people at cocktail parties and whatnot, that's not a friendship.
Well, you know,
inviting a celebrity to your wedding, that's not a friendship.
You know, you may be right about that. I know Bill and Donald have been golfing buddies. I mean, they've been out golfing together on occasion. I would imagine that, you know, at that level of interface. I mean, you know, being in entertainment, being in politics, I've been at events where, you know, I'm friendly with people on both sides of the aisle. I mean, even when I was down, I was talking to Brian about being down at the Republican convention in Cleveland. I mean, those folks down there, I largely don't agree with a lot of the issues, but I have to say that I couldn't have been treated more kindly. I couldn't have been treated more courteously by all the folks that are down there.
Your black eyes cleared up nicely.
There was
I told all of them.
Right. It was okay.
I told all of them you'd given $1,000 to their campaign.
I appreciate it. I didn't give any money to the campaign.
That was
but
so that
very
they'd be
nice.
nice.
I mean,
Okay.
people let me interview them. I was sitting there. I listened, you know, talking to John Bramnick, talking to Joe Panaccio. I mean, it was very, very nice. So
Did
we
you
get
wear the
along.
shirt that said "took money from Corzine" but
Did
endorsed?
not. No, that was. I had that tattooed on my back though. That was doing that. But I did get a lot of luck. Just before we get back to what we're talking about, one of the things I thought was funny was the looks of people when I was walking in the room. They go like, what is he doing here?
Joe,
you know?
you get those looks all the
I
time.
get. Oh, that was it. Even
that's
at
not the
comedy shows.
convention.
Actually, you're right. I thought it was just me, but I thought it was. I did not have my fly open at the time. Let me run over.
At breakfast, I'd come and sit near you, and then it'd be contagious. I would get them also.
And you would get them also, and I was sitting. But I had a very nice time. Although I was getting questions because they didn't allow reporters in the room when I was there, but they did allow me to sit in the room, especially with other people from Somerset and Hunter County. So the reporters were asking me, "How did you get in the room?" Which I thought was very funny. So let me move on to Bridgegate. This is an issue that I think recently the trial started. So we've had Bill Baroni on the stand. We've had, I guess, where Bridget Kelly told her story of having a bottle of water thrown at her by the governor and being abused there. And so what's going on in Bridgegate? What do you guys, any opinions about Bridgegate? And nothing. Okay, let's move on.
Well, I think
no, I'm sorry, go on.
every bridge story has a troll, and Christie is the troll.
There you go.
And the
Okay.
second thing is, bridges are never good for Republicans. I mean, I was
that
in
the case?
Massachusetts when William Weld was getting started on the big dig. Sarah Palin had the bridge to nowhere. Now Christie's got the George Washington Bridge.
Well,
Bridges are not good for Republicans.
If you wanted to go back to bridges and politics, let's talk about Ted Kennedy and bridges.
There you go.
That's
Still-
where
That's a
it
good
begins.
The pioneer.
Still bringing it up after all these years.
It never gets old.
Some people can't stay on it.
There you go. Okay, but it is the case that aside from all of the very funny jokes that I'm hearing, even from our freeholder, that was very nice. I'm going to write that down. Was that Ted Kennedy or John F. Kennedy? The Brit? No, I'm just kidding. So here we have a situation that is going to affect talking about getting elected. I would imagine that this will put a bit of a damper on some Republicans running for office. I mean, certainly you think it'll hurt any Republicans?
Yeah, Kim Cadiano is going to be hard-pressed to escape the smell of the Christie administration being so part of it, and it's very hard for her. In many regards, she's sort of window dressing, but at the same time, so how do you blame her for this stuff. She's not really in charge.
Right.
But she's still caught up in all of this. So it's going to be very difficult for her to get past this.
And you know, talking about, I was at the debate between Loretta Weinberg and Kim Guadagno. I'd never seen Kim Guadagno speak before. I had met her once years ago when she was she was sheriff, and we were at some event at the New Jersey League of Municipalities, and she seemed like a very nice person, articulate, not bad to look at as far as presentation on television. And now I think that unfortunately,
Now, would you say that about a man, Joey?
What, that
Would
he's
you
good
say
to
that a
look at
guy
on
isn't
television?
bad to look at?
you know, actually,
Just making sure we're working on
I
an
probably
even-
would not. I apologize.
all right,
That was
all right.
probably a faux pas. I'm probably
She had
sorry about
nice
that.
legs,
She has
you
nice
know.
legs. She looks
just what I look for in a governor. Good game.
And probably just want to look
Good
for the governor.
games.
And that's why I voted for Chris Christie. That's he had some pair of legs. I said, if those legs can hold up that body, I am going to give him. No, but all kidding aside, I think that her candidacy and being the first lieutenant governor in the state of New Jersey was largely wasted by Chris Christie. I think she could have been out there a lot more.
No, I think you're wrong about that. And,
You
and
think
maybe,
I'm wrong? Okay.
Yeah, she's been out there across the state talking to business groups, talking to all sorts of
Right.
different organizations. She was at the firefighters convention in Wildwood a few weeks ago and wowed the crowd, did a fantastic job. Talked about how she gave out her cell phone number last year and that all the firefighters tried to call her and invite her to their picnics and invite her out for beer.
Because
things
she
like
had
that.
good legs.
Yeah,
They
she had
wanted
good
her
legs. You know, she was good looking
I
on
am
stage.
never going to live
So-
that down.
No, you won't.
Live down.
But she's excellent and has been, as I said, been all over the place talking to groups. Maybe not the kind of groups that a Joey Novick would go to, but
No.
but
Well,
business
'cause
groups,
she is.
industry
She
groups.
she's also the Secretary of State.
yeah.
Right.
So,
So-
she's
and-
actually got
She's in charge of the economic development
that,
package.
that I think that I think was a good addition to the law when they added a lieutenant governor. Is that making that person be the Secretary of State? Also, I think was a good
I think
choice.
that was an administrative choice on the part of the Christie administration. I don't think that's in the law.
I think it is.
No, I think it's written into.
It's written into the law.
I
think
think they
so,
should
yeah.
have some
Getting
kind of
back to-
position.
Yeah, getting
Is
back
what?
to
I'm sorry.
No, I think the lieutenant governor has to have some kind of position in Trenton, as I remember it.
and recall.
But
But getting back to
I've forgotten a
Bridgegate,
lot.
which is
Yep,
what
Bridgegate.
we've, you started all this. This is a great example of why people are so pissed off at the establishment. Here you've got Cuomo and Christie, both sides of the aisle, both sides of the Hudson, working together in this patronage pit to exact political revenge on the people they don't like, whether it's Cuomo and de Blasio with all sorts of stuff going on in New York City, or whether it's Christie and the mayor of Fort Lee and the mayor of Jersey City. This is why people hate politicians and hate the establishment, because what it comes down to is not about conservative policies or liberal policies, it's about power. And Christie was going to show who's boss. And Bridget Ann Kelly is a pawn in all this, in my estimation, and it's regrettable. You've got Bill Baroni, who gave up a seat in the assembly for a $200 grand a year job. Senator, sorry, gave it for a $200 grand a year job at the Port Authority with all the perks, with the apartment, with the cars, and all this stuff. It's a cesspool, and him to sit up there on the witness stand and say, "Oh, I didn't know," and I didn't trust Whittlestein, or it's nonsense. These guys are thick as thieves in all this. Other than I think Bridget Ann Kelly, who I think is a legitimate victim in all this, was a single mom looking to make ends meet, didn't want to lose her job, did what she was told. No, that's not exactly the best excuse. But she's,
But she
just
sent
like
the
in the middle of
email.
this.
But she was the one whose name was on the email. Time for a little trouble in Fort Lee. I mean, you don't write that. I mean,
Look,
you don't put
nobody.
that in email.
I'm sorry,
unless
you don't
you're
get up to
not
go to the
complicit.
bathroom in the Christie administration without raising your hand and asking permission from the governor or his
Right.
chief of staff himself. So the thought that she orchestrated this is just silliness. You would go to Bridget Ann Kelly and say, "Hey, can we do this for this municipality?" She would then run it up the flagpole and then report back.
Right.
Now, did she get wrapped up in the milieu of this administration and the bullying? Absolutely. And shame on her for that. But that doesn't make her a criminal.
Yeah,
And
see-
that's my problem with is, I think there's real criminal activity on the part of Whittlestein, on the part of Baroni,
Right.
on the part of the administration. I don't think it goes down to Bridget Ann Kelly.
Here's my opinion about it. I'm sorry, Brian, go ahead, then I'll
I
get
was
mine.
just going to say, personally, when I was mayor over in Franklin and Somerset, and I'd have contact with her, she's always very personable, responsive, and such as that.
Time for a little trouble in Franklin. We're going to block off Route 22.
Well, I
and they can't go
had
in.
an all-Democrat council, so
Right.
she said, we took care of Franklin, now we'll go on to the
Right,
bridges.
but here's my opinion with regard to that. I think this thing with the bridge probably started out at some level as like a frat boy thing. hey, let's cause some trouble there. We'll cut off a lane or two. And I think it may have grown into something much bigger than that beyond 2 and 3 and 4 days. And when it first, I don't think they thought it through. I think that I don't
think they thought there'd be consequences. I think when you get to a certain point in power, you don't think that you're going to suffer the consequences of your actions. It's like the guy that has the airline flight from Newark down to his home in South Carolina.
Samson, I think.
Thank you. You reach a certain point where you pull this stuff over and over and over again. You don't get caught. You don't get called for it. That you think just get away with it.
Well, there is the culture in politics of the backroom deals and and what goes on beneath the radar. And 30 years ago, if any of this had happened, we'd never know about it.
Never.
Because it all came out through emails and text messages.
Exactly.
And through subpoenas of those documents and of those
so
devices.
Many more records.
And now you can't. And in a way, it's a good thing that I think it's gonna take time for the political establishment to evolve into the fact that you can't be as below boards anymore, because we're going to find out. You're going to find out what the truth is, and you're going to find out what was said. And
exactly.
You can't, and you see what's happening with Hillary Clinton, because everybody's going, well, there were emails. Why would you? Nobody deletes their email. Like who does that?
And even if you delete your emails, they are recoverable.
Right.
I mean, there's never anything.
I don't like deleting 40 emails, much less 30,000.
30,000
You just don't
emails.
have that kind of time on.
I don't have. It's so funny when I think about the number of ways that people contact me for gigs, and this is only comedians. This is not even in politics. I get comedians who confirm it. Like I will email them regular Gmail to confirm a gig, and I don't hear from them. I don't hear from them. And now I'll look in my Facebook message box and it's there. And especially if we're not friends on Facebook and they've confirmed, then it goes to another section. And then I say, well, I did confirm with you, and I look back and it's there. So there are so many different ways to communicate, and they never ever leave. They're always there, no matter what. But here's the thing I wanted to say about this. When they blocked off that bridge, and let's just say it started out as a frat boy, whatever, a frat boy joke, and is that negative to fraternities?
Yeah, but we'll let it slide.
Okay, we'll let it slide. We'll let it.
Sororities are just as likely to do this
the
kind
Jewish
of stuff.
fraternities will. No, but my point is that 95 and George Washington Bridge is the route out of New York for another 9/11. They did it on the anniversary of 9/11. I don't think they thought this through at all. I don't think that they really thought this would, like you said, would have any consequences. And it's unfortunate that people's lives were impacted. And, of course, there are Democrats who are very sure that Christie knew about it from the very beginning. His own report from the
well, he's never denied that.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think if you look at his words carefully.
Right. And he is a lawyer.
Yeah. I wasn't told. I don't have it in front of me, but I think he's been. You look at the words, and it's hard to believe that he didn't know about this at some point. He
said at his press conference that he did not know anything about it until that week that it all came out.
I especially did not believe him when he pointed his finger at the camera and said, "I did not get a text about that bridge, not one time, not ever, from this woman, Bridget Kelly, not one time." So I thought that was quite believable across the board.
With Bridgegate, I think it more has legs, not the kind you were speaking of, Kevin.
Joy was speaking of.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Because when you talk about NAFTA, foreign trade, TTF, it's a little bit of concept people have to know. People can relate to, someone blocked a bridge and people couldn't get over. Everyone's been in traffic.
Right.
I think it's just easy to relate to. So I think that's
it is a heart issue.
Yes,
where you go, we've all sat in traffic, we've all had that anger of what's causing. I just want to see what's causing
right.
this.
Right.
And then when you find out that it's potentially somebody you voted for who did this to you, it really does.
And that's a very good point from the mayor, and I've been a mayor, and Brian has been a mayor, and people, you pass all sorts of complicated rules and laws, and deal with complicated issues about housing and whatnot. It's the stop sign, it's the speed hump, it's the traffic light. That's what gets people really ginned up. So it's these simple things that people can have a basic understanding of.
And someone who has been a non-mayor for many years, I'm just kidding. I think one of the important
people don't care about COA; they care about
exactly
the stop sign.
Look at the gas tax. People,
yes.
If if you talked about anything, any more complicated tax plan that might save you money down the road in your property tax or something, people might go, all right, 23 cents at the gas pump, forget it.
Right.
The world's over. Meanwhile, we were paying $5 a gallon a few years ago, and the world kept going. Nobody was happy about it. But when you tell somebody that here's the number, here's how it's going to affect you, this is what it is. When you can absorb something and say, oh my, this is on the ledger where it's going to be, people are very aware and very willing to start posting about it on Facebook.
The last time the gas tax was raised was 1988, and if we raised the gas tax a penny a year from 1989 on all through now, the gas would actually be higher than 23 cents.
Well, who's advocating for
gallon.
raising the tax every single year other than a liberal Democrat?
No, but what I'm saying, a penny a year, no one would have felt, and we would have been at a point even greater than we are now.
We'd all be shopping in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and we'd be shopping in Pennsylvania, or buying our gas there now because it'll be cheaper in Pennsylvania.
But it's sort of that law of unintended consequences.
Yeah,
I've got a friend who works for the Turnpike Authority, and he was just mentioning something a couple of weeks ago. He said that one of the big service areas as you come out of the city, that one service area, they sell over some ridiculous, like 10 million gallons of gas a year in that one service area. So they're buying the gas and they're buying other stuff. I mean, yeah, it's Twinkies and Doritos, but a lot of people. Now, I spend about half of my weekends a year up in Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse for performances and stuff. I plan my trip based on the New Jersey gas price. I fill up before I leave, and I know that exactly how much gas that I need to buy to get me back to the New Jersey border so that it's then cheaper. So what's going to happen is a lot of these people who will make trips and might even take an extra hour to make a trip are now going to divert to the Tappan Zee and go straight over into Pennsylvania, and it's going to pull a lot of that money.
Are you related to my father?
I love your bits about your parents.
And they're going to just bypass it.
Jack Citarelli was on the show last week, and Jack was talking about this issue. And again, this is a guy from the Republican side.
He proposed, 5 cents a gallon for over 3 years or something.
Yeah, he wanted a raise. He's not. He said, look, we haven't had a raise since 1988. This is Flo, New Jersey is a pass-through state. 23 cents a gallon was just a horrible imposition on those who drive. Also, it puts New Jersey in a position of we from Delaware through the border of New York, we have a lot of trucks that pass through here, and cars are becoming more efficient. I mean, cars are becoming a lot more gas friendly. Why base this on a gallon of usage? I mean, if you want to build roads, I mean, put it, maybe put a usage on cars, maybe something that is like that, or maybe a couple of pennies.
I think that's missing the point. It goes back to your point about the heart issue.
Yeah.
And that is, it kind of ties in with the Bridgegate. It shut down traffic and it inconvenienced people now. It's a lot of people in Jersey are not going to look at the efficiency of the cars. They're going to say, you know what, this is the one thing we pay less than the rest of the country,
and, we don't.
And you're taking this away for money that's going to get blown to the four winds just like everything else.
And that's the other part of this thing is the spending side. We spend so much more on our roads than any other state by a huge margin. Even if that number of $2 million a road is off a little bit, let's assume it's off by half. That still means we're double what Massachusetts spends. And nothing was done to cut the cost, and nothing was done to cut the spending side. And here's another example of the establishment. You had business Republicans like the Chamber of Commerce, like the Business and Industry Association, in a cabal with left-wing labor organizations and other liberals organizations that wanted to see a gas tax to reduce the usage of gas, working together against the people. And again, we get right back to Trump and Sanders. It's the establishment continues to screw us.
Your governor signed it. Your governor put his signature on that thing, and maybe you could say, well,
he stopped being my governor when he closed down Hagedorn.
Right, he's going. That's right, because that impacts our county. But he signed this into law. He made an absolute promise the day I remember the debate, John Corzine and Chris Christie, and he said, "I will never." I mean, that's always a tough thing to say. I will not run again. And,
read my lips.
If it makes
Governor
you feel
Christie.
Let me go to Brian.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm a CPA, so I do calculations. With the sales tax
that does not make anybody feel any better.
I'm about to get a little bit lighter in my wallet. I can feel it.
Okay, with the sales tax cut on a $1,000 purchase, you'll save $1.25.
Okay. So when I
go
buy
for it.
so when I buy that when I buy that big screen TV that's made in Japan, I'll save $1.25.
Buy it-
What's
you
it?
can
What
buy
was
a
the number?
coffee
You
on
have to
the way
spend
back.
$42,000 a year.
Yeah.
To see the benefit of that.
Well, and this is one of the problems with governance in New Jersey at that level, where they do these trade-offs on the estate tax, they do these trade-offs on sales tax, which is like 0.065 cents on the dollar. I mean, it's just like Jack was saying, is that they've been kicking this can down the road for so long, and of course the roads are no longer good, so you couldn't even actually kick it down the road. But the point being that this kind of governance is what gets us into trouble time after time after time, is not being able to come to a
And
rational
you do see
decision.
that state, federal, they're always kicking it down the road. It's
Right.
really irresponsible.
And that's not the
Pushing
way
it back.
business would run at all. A business
Because
can't.
future generations can't vote for you.
Right.
So wait,
That's
you're
right.
saying, hold on, Joey.
Yeah.
You just said something very important.
Uh-oh.
You're
Again?
you're saying government should run like a business.
I think that
That's
government.
that's a
I
that's
think
a
that's a
very
great idea. I don't know
that's
why
a
anybody
very
hadn't thought of that.
progressive
See,
statement
that's
for
not what I
Democrats
said,
to be
though.
making.
That's
I
not what I
hope
said.
he's
though.
not a
I
closet
think that
Republican.
government should run with. I think government should run with prudent fiscal accountability, and government should run knowing where their dollars are spent. I think the governments should run not spending more than they bring in, and I think that projects that last more than 5, 10, 15 years should be bonded the way you buy.
I just see
a
your lips
mortgage.
moving. All I heard
The
was
way-
government should run like a business.
the way you
I
mortgage
see the
your
lips
house.
flapping.
And I think that things that things that should be paid. However, here's the difference. I think a business serves a particular constituency. I sell widgets. My customers are widget buyers, and that's the part of the market that I respond to. But a government is for everybody. A government has to make sure that the roads go everywhere. A government has to make sure that if we are to have public education, and you may be opposed to public education, I don't know, but I'm a product of public education.
We can
in
tell.
New York City
And-
schools. You can tell. I knew that was going to come. Thank you. But the point is, public education is for everybody. That is why it's run. Why it's run by the government. If we had no public education, and let's say that you had to pay for your kids entirely out of your own pocket, you know what? I'm not sure I would mind that. I have no kids.
Nobody disputes that government
Right.
has a role to play in providing
Absolutely.
the essential services the market does not. The problem is that government agencies are not run like businesses. They are run as fiefdoms and bureaucracies.
Right.
And they don't run with the kind of business-like efficiency or responsiveness that the private sector does. That's the
And they run
challenge.
with a lot of hypocrisy, too. For instance, anyone in federal government who doesn't know Social Security is a Ponzi scheme is just being blind to themselves. In the state pension plan, where Democrat, Republican administrations for decades, a private pension plan, the people running it would go to prison because you can't have an unfunded
Well,
pension.
here's where I disagree.
Hypocritical.
Here's where I disagree with you on this. If Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, then governments are a Ponzi scheme, because what I'm doing is every time I pay taxes, every time I stick in my hand in my pocket and pay taxes, that goes to pay for some service somewhere that is rolling up bills that aren't necessarily can be paid with the money that they make in that year. That's why the government is bonds a lot of different things. So if Social Security is a Ponzi scheme where I'm putting in money, somebody is putting in money now to pay me my Social Security check, then all government is a Ponzi scheme from day one, because governments are built on taxes that are. It's not a government. A government is not a pay for your services. Government is a government. We all throw our lot in.
No, because the reason that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme is because you're giving the illusion that you're investing in your future retirement. Government, generally, you pay and you get services in return. You get roads, you get bridges, you get things of that sort.
Or they bond things for the future.
Well, Hunterdon
or they
County is
throw in,
debt-free.
I'm sorry?
Hunterdon County is debt-free.
Yeah.
Boom! Mic drop.
That's right.
You can walk out now.
Yeah, liberal, take that, you guy. How about that, you liberal guy? When I ran for freeholder 20 years ago, I was running against George Mielek, and I didn't know anything about George Mielek, so I started going to the freeholder meetings to give him, the evil eye stare across the board, and I went to the budget meetings, and I watched him do something to then the county prosecutor was Sharon Ransavage, and he started asking her questions, and he went through line by line by line by line by line, and I thought, boy, I'm really learning a lot of the budget here. And then Sharon, who's a friend of mine, asked him a question. He said, Mr. Mielek, are you done yet? When are you going to be done? And George said, well, when I close my book, you'll know I'm done. And he sat there and he asked her probably another half an hour of questions just because he didn't like hers. And then he stopped asking questions. Then very slowly he closed his ledger and then he just stared at her. But the thing that I learned at that time is I learned something very important from George Mielek and from Jimmy Carter. From Jimmy Carter, I learned the idea of what is that, the budget plan where you
Zero-based budgeting.
Zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting is something that Jimmy Carter did for the first time when he was the head of schools in Georgia, where every time people came in, you made them justify their budget from line one, and from George going over place to place to place. And I started doing that, and the person who I would do that with during Flemington's budget was our county clerk, Mary Melfi. And I have to say that I think we got much better budgets in Flemington because
I don't think
of that
Mary
kind of
would agree
budgeting.
with you.
I'm sorry?
I don't think Mary would agree with you.
She may not agree with me now. She may not, but back then we would go back and forth on that, and that's the way we went through the budgets.
I recently did the same thing to Mary's budget, and
I'm sorry?
I recently did the same thing to the county clerk's budget, and I can tell you she was not happy.
I'm sure she was not. I'm sure she was not. It's like the old joke from The Producers where I think Leo Bloom is talking about how great actors are. I love actors. I want to be in acting. I want to be a producer. Then, Max Bialystock, played by Zero Mostel, says, yes, you love actors, but you have to eat a meal with one. When you're across the table, when she's doing it, it's one thing, but when she's having it done to her, I think it's a very different feeling.
Yeah, I never thought I'd live to hear somebody invoke Jimmy Carter in a positive light in terms of governance.
Jimmy Carter was, look, when you are the president of the United States, very different point of view than when you're the governor of a state.
That's
and,
true.
Look, you've been a mayor, I've been on a borough council. We have to only spend the money that we take in. Okay, right. We have to spend, we have to know where when our people come in and we ask them, what are your capital projects for the next 5 years? And they say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. We don't say yes to everything. We don't say yes to everything, but we have to do a budget. Very important.
That's an interesting point.
Yep.
Because I lived in New Hampshire, no state income tax, no state sales tax.
Right.
And I've been in other states that have similar arrangements, and their roads aren't falling apart. Their schools are not horrendous. Actually, in many cases, they're better than states that are. The ability to spend more than what you've got is not well.
It's a different. You're right. You're right at a point, but there's also a very different There's a different makeup of the population. There's a different density of the population. There's different levels of the urban to the rural, the needs, the socioeconomic. It's not an apples to apples comparison when you look at New Hampshire to us.
But the same is true in Texas and Florida. They also don't have a state income tax.
Right, and I hate to end off on that because I would love to talk about the difference between Texas and Florida schools and New Jersey schools, but we are out of time, unfortunately. So real quickly, I just want to thank Brian Levine, Kevin Israel, Jeff Scott, Rob Walton for being with us here today. Jeff, where are you going to be next weekend?
Actually, I'm going to be back in Rochester in a couple of weeks. Performing
up there.
With a corporate show band.
Corporate show, and where are you going to be this weekend?
This weekend I'll be at Comedy Works in Bristol, PA, and in 2 weeks, November 11th and 12th, I'll be at the Comedy Cove up in Springfield. Up in two great clubs, one outside of New Jersey, one inside of New Jersey. Brian, what's going on in Somerset County?
I'll be playing Somerville next week.
You'll be playing Somerville. We'll see your comedy up there.
Yeah,
and well, speaking of comedies and comedians and politicians, Joe Piscopo will be the main speaker and guest at the Hunterdon County Republican dinner next week.
So
and he has put his finger into the water, or toe into the water.
I've heard he wants to run for governor himself.
He was my Little League coach.
He's had that toe in the water a few times.
Yes, he has. He was talking about it. So
Joe and I go back a really long time. I know Joe real well. He's a funny guy, and I know he's probably running around trying to be a Republican, and I hope he runs. I hope he gets into your primary. We will have another thing to talk about for the next year. I am Joey Novick. You've been listening to Punchlines in Politics on WPANJradio.com. I want to thank y'all and take off. The y'all was for you, Jeff. Bye-bye. Great, guys. Thank you for making